I think it goes beyond just the state. The state is part of the problem with the recent problems of the market use situation. Some of these landowners here said their land taxes went up over 300–400%. But there's another area as well which involves itself with inheritance and estate taxes, which is at the federal level. Those taxes are such that they're destructive to the continuation of forest management on people's property, maybe a decade of management in which the lands have to be cut for the income to pay the federal taxes. That's the two reasons.
Great state. I will continue to recognize only one. I have enjoyed representing the citizens of this great city at the municipal, and I wish to ask many questions. It is not the public employees' fault the economy is in a slump. It is not the classroom teacher's fault we have had 3 prorated education budgets over the past 4 years. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the fault of the irresponsible elected official. Together we can show our rejection of an Alabama Senate which plays political games with your money.
Many golf enthusiasts say Jerry Page's dive into the lake at the conclusion of last year's Memphis Open did a lot toward changing the image of golf. Pate doesn't go quite that far, but he says the image of golf is improving.
I think the image is actually better than it has been. I think there are more class players playing today. The guys coming right out of college, most of them have degrees or been to 4 years of school, playing on the tour. I think the competition is better and stronger than it's ever been, and I think one or two things has changed. I think the colored golf ball has changed the game a little bit in the last year.
Let's talk about the colored golf ball. You are one of the few that does use it on the tour. How do you like it?
I like it very much. I use the orange Wilson ball, and I don't think there's any ball that performs any better to me than the ball that I'm using, and the color really doesn't make much difference as far as my thinking of playing a shot. But I think the great thing is that when I hit the ball down the fairway or on the greens or in a bunker, and another player would hit a similar shot, when we get up to our ball, it's really easier for me to identify my ball because I know I'm using the orange ball.
Pate will be back in Memphis this weekend to defend his Memphis Open title, but right now he's just concerned with getting his game back in shape.
I don't feel like it's as good as it should be right now. I need to play a little bit more and practice a little harder, and I'm going to be playing Memphis next week, the U.S. Open out at Pebble Beach following that, and then back to Westchester, New York. So after those 3 weeks of playing, I feel like, should I say after the first week here in Memphis, I hope my game's going to be in good shape for the Open.
It was for the purpose of equalizing property tax. The court ordered reappraisal. There's a lot of folks that use this as a vehicle to raise ad valorem taxes, but there's nothing in the order that says that you have to increase ad valorem taxes. It only says you got to equalize taxes. But it's been used as a vehicle for 2 different occasions to raise the ad valorem tax in this state. And in the lid bill, provision was made that the county commissions and city governing bodies could adjust millage. Is more than they thought, their assessments, well then they could reduce the tax burden by reducing the millage.
Homer, the 4-foot-long, 5-pound eastern diamondback rattlesnake is becoming a part of the Sheriff's Department's family. He'll probably be a key piece of evidence in the snake-biting case against Morris, who will be arraigned on first-degree assault charges next week. Authorities say Morris apparently forced the snake's venomous fangs into Wayne McClellan's right arm. Doctors say he's recovering miraculously from 3 bite wounds after receiving 21 vials of snakebite serum. Doctors say at one time McClellan had actually died in a Pensacola hospital but was revived. Now he's slowly regaining movement in his right arm. Sheriff Glenn Chambers is still investigating the unusual case. He knows Morris and McClellan worked together on an oil rig in Louisiana and came to Andalusia to buy a car tag, but Chambers doesn't know why Morris allegedly used the snake as a potentially deadly weapon against McClellan.
We're thinking really what happened is the man had the snake directly behind the head, and you can hold him in a way that it causes his fangs to stick out. And he came down with a downward force as he forcefully made the snake strike the man in the shoulder.
But we don't know why.
No, ma'am, we do not know why. This is what we're wanting to find out.
Sheriff Chambers says if Morris is convicted, he could receive up to 25 years in prison, possibly more, in what the sheriff calls a serious yet bizarre case. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Andalusia.
And that is the person who would be subjected to arrest and prosecution in the event that there's a violation of the and there would be incarceration, 30 days in jail, and it's that the government provide permanent maintenance and care for the cemetery by keeping it clean.
Great state. I will continue to recognize only one. I have enjoyed representing the citizens of this great city at the municipal and they wish to ask me any questions. It is not the public employees' fault the economy is in a slump. It is not the classroom teachers' fault we have had 3 prorated education budgets over the past 4 years. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the fault of the irresponsible elected official. Together, we can show our rejection of an Alabama Senate which plays political games with your money.
Necessary to a continuing long-term effort in timber production. Came to essentially the same 2 years, the number of agencies governing the analogy to other non-renewable resources. So what's the problem?
I think it goes beyond just the state. The state is part of the problem with the recent problems of the market use situation. Some of these landowners here said their land taxes went up over 300-400%. But there's another area as well which involves itself with inheritance and estate taxes, which is at the federal level. Those taxes are such that they're destructive to the continuation of forest management on people's property, maybe a decade of management in which the lands have to be cut for the income to pay the federal taxes. That's the 2 reasons.
After the jury returned the guilty verdict last month, it also recommended that Murray be sentenced to life in prison without parole. During today's pre-sentencing hearing, Murray's landlord and 2 of his former supervisors with the city sanitation department took the stand. They told Judge William Gordon that Murray was an average worker, and although he would raise his voice at times, he was not the type to get into fights. Murray's court-appointed attorney, Bill Gobrecht, asked Judge Gordon to follow the jury's recommendation and give his client life in prison. But Assistant District Attorney Jim Williams asked Judge Gordon to return the maximum penalty allowed under law. Williams reminded the judge that the jury's finding was only a recommendation, and he was not bound by the jury's decision. Following the hearing, Gobrecht told us no matter what sentence a judge hands down, he'll ask for a new trial and appeal the conviction.
I feel that the instructions that Judge Gordon gave the jury were erroneous in that he told them that they did not have to find that Paul Murray knew that the individuals were police officers. And by statute, the Supreme Court was supposed to have promulgated instructions to be given in capital murder cases, and they haven't done that yet. And they didn't have them ready for our case either. So Judge Gordon was stuck with having to devise his own instructions.
So now the decision to uphold the jury's recommendation of life in prison without parole or impose a death penalty is up to Judge William Gordon. Judge Gordon says he'll make a ruling in the case sometime within a week. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
Central Alabama Academy was one of about a dozen non-public schools in the Montgomery area. The owners had problems paying off debts and closed the academy less than 2 weeks ago. Executive Director of the Alabama Private School Association, John Faircloth, says in bad economic times it's hard for non-public schools to catch up on debt.
Generally speaking, in the Montgomery area, I think our non-public schools are doing quite well. There are some areas in the state of Alabama, though, that are suffering because of economic shutdowns or industry closing. Pickens County, Tuscaloosa County, Jefferson County are a few of these areas.
The old Central property was leased by Montgomery St. James School. Former Central students have several non-public schools to consider, including St. James, which just last night held an open house for parents of one-time Central students. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
The AEA brochure, called 17 Reasons to Say No, was mailed to its members as a supplement to the lobbying group's publication, the Alabama School Journal. The governor's legislative liaison, Bob Getty, says the brochure is misleading. For instance, Getty says reason number 3, which implies the options to allow members to withdraw some or all of their contributions is financially unsound, isn't supported by the retirement system's own financial managers.
Buck and Associates, which is the actuary for the retirement system. He says that this plan is sound. The White Company, which is a private company that we've used for a number of years, helping us come up with some decent reform measures, also says our plan is actuarially sound.
Doesn't the Secretary
I'd like to
Treasurer
see him produce some experts at some of these hearings, and let's hear from them.
And reason number 8 says higher education faculty can choose 2 retirement plans.
Completely misrepresentation of the facts. Those in higher education may choose either TIAA retirement plan or the teacher's retirement plan, not both.
And number 10 says retirement benefits are a large part in balancing the unattractiveness of very low salaries.
Salaries rate right at the top of the Southeast. During this administration, those in public education have received a 30% increase in pay in 4 years. There are very few people in the private sector that can compare to this.
Getty says this brochure misleads retirement system's members.
Well, these 17 reasons really don't surprise me. Dr. Hubbard is a master at confusion. In many cases, misrepresentation of the facts.
Getty says letters countering the AEA brochure will be mailed to teachers and state employees next week. And Getty says the governor will continue his statewide tour to drum up support for the reform measure before the special session begins June 21st. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
I think it is.
Part of the projected $50 million gross for this fight will come from closed circuit telecast around the world. And the Montgomery Civic Center will be one such outlet. This afternoon, workers were putting on the finishing touches inside the Civic Center, setting up the 12-foot screen and checking out the equipment that will bring the broadcast. 2,500 seats are available at a cost of $20 or $25, depending on where you care to sit. As of 2 o'clock this afternoon, pre-fight ticket sales were rather low. Only about 800 seats had been sold. Civic Center Director Charlie Kensall blamed the low sales on the state of the economy, but he's confident that fight publicity will bring a large walk-up crowd prior to the ballot.
Well, we are disappointed in what the earlier sales have been, Rick, and you're right, there's a lot of interest in the fight, and we'd hoped to have a much bigger pre-sale than we've had, but we're hoping that when the people get off from work that they're going to come by and pick up their tickets.
Are you expecting a big walk-up crowd?
Well, we think that we will get a big walk-up tonight because a lot of people will wait till the last minute because of the so many fights have been postponed or there have been so many cancellations. They probably want to make sure it's going to be for real.
Gates to the Civic Center open tonight at 7, and there will be 2 preliminary bouts before the main event. Holmes and Cooney are not expected to get underway before 9:30.
McDonald's Corporation, along with Aronoff Realty Company and Kmart, had proposed using a 1977 extension of the Wallace-Cater Act, which provides for low-cost financing and tax exemptions for businesses. However, 42 Wetumpka retail merchants protested the move and filed suit to stop the stores from receiving any tax-free bonds. In today's unanimous ruling by the High Court, the justices upheld the ruling of an Elmore County judge, saying the act is to be applied only in industrial expansion. The court ruled the purpose of the act is to, quote, bring industry and jobs to Alabama. State Representative Jack Venable, who opposed the use of the bonds for retail businesses, says he's happy with the court's decision.
I have never believed that it was the intent of the legislature to extend industrial revenue bond financing to the retail segment. The only reason that the state of Alabama or any other state created industrial revenue bond financing was to compete with other states for industrial development, and that is jobs. And I simply do not believe that it was intended for retail establishments.
The attorney representing the 42 retail merchants, Joe Macon of Wetumpka, says even though today's ruling affects only Alabama, he would not be surprised to see many other states follow suit in restricting the use of tax-free bonds for industries. Matt Carmack, WSFA TV News.
I have never believed that it was the intent of the legislature to extend industrial revenue bond financing to the retail segment. The only reason that the state of Alabama or any other state created industrial revenue bond financing was to compete with other states for industrial development, and that is jobs. And I simply do not believe that it was intended for retail establishments.
The AEA is campaigning hard against the governor's retirement reform by using a brochure mailed to its members which lists 17 reasons to say no to the governor's proposal. But the governor's legislative liaison, Bob Getty, says several of the listed reasons are misleading and untrue.
Well, these 17 reasons really don't surprise me. Dr. Hubbard is a master at confusion, in many cases misrepresentation of the facts.
As an example, Getty says the AEA argument that higher education faculty can choose a combination of retirement plans is totally false. And Getty says the AEA fails to mention that the retirement system's financial managers agree with the governor that the reforms won't jeopardize the system's financial soundness. And Getty says he agrees with other officials that the brochure appears to insult the intelligence of teachers and employees about the ability of those workers to decide if they want to opt for a lower benefit or keep the benefits they currently have.
Well, I think that's a supposition made by the AEA that really smacks their membership. I think their membership is capable of making decisions based on what is best for them, and that's what our plan provides. It provides a good plan for teachers and state employees, and it also provides a good deal for taxpayers.
The governor's proposal will be debated by the legislature when it meets in special session June 21st. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
I think it is
All eyes in the sports world are turned toward Las Vegas tonight as Larry Holmes defends his WBC heavyweight crown against Jerry Cooney. Tom Foreman of our news staff is standing by at the Civic Center where the fight is being broadcast by closed-circuit television. Tom, can you give us any kind of update as to what's going on right now?
We have had a knockdown in the fight, Rick. It came in the second round. It came from that overhand right of Holmes that had been mentioned before. Holmes came in, hit Cooney low, hit him in the stomach. Cooney bent over slightly. Holmes came with that overhand right, just coming in over the gloves. Cooney staggered to the side and fell to the mat. Cooney was right back up again. He was apparently not hurt. In the first round, both boxers appeared to be feeling each other out. Holmes kept his distance, reaching in there to tag Cooney with that left jab, not doing any damage. Cooney stepping in now and again, throwing the strong left hook, but not really connecting the way he'd like to connect. That continued on in the first round. In the second round, again, the knockdown, where Holmes reached in and hit Cooney hit him with an overhand right shot, dropping Cooney to the mat. Cooney was apparently not hurt, though. He got right back up, was doing well. In the third round, Cooney came out hitting very hard. However, it only lasted a few moments. Then they went back into a feeling each other out, although not hitting each other hard. The fifth round has just finished just now. The fourth round, there was some hard hitting by Cooney again. Holmes getting a little bit bolder in the fourth round, stepping in, hitting a little bit harder, moving very fast. Cooney, again, though, is hitting harder. It appears that Cooney is trying to make his move now. But the knockdown came in the second round. The fifth round has just ended. Both boxers seem to be running pretty close to each other at this point, Rick.
John, we'll try and check back with you here in just a little bit of a while. Before we go tonight, let's check in once again with Tom Foreman down at the Civic Center for a brief update. Tom?
They are in a slugfest down here, Rick. Round 6, both boxers hitting hard, moving fast. Cooney connecting more than he has before. He is driving in on Holmes, trying to do as much damage as possible, but both fighters are hitting very hard. Holmes has been making a weapon of that left jab, doing more damage. Cooney's left hook is powerful. It is not connected as hard as he'd like it to, but it has turned into a slugfest here in the 6th round of the fight. Tom Foreman reporting live from the Civic Center.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much, and back that sport.
You've got about... I got about 5 minutes before he fires that thing up.
Recruiting has picked up tremendously for the Army. October of '81, we came out with a new program, what we call the Army College Fund. And we find that the majority of seniors that are wanting to go to college find this very attractive to them. Right now, they say that by the end of the year, which ends for us in October, that we'll be somewhere between 9,000 and 11,000 people over strength.
McCorkadale says all the public hears today is bad news, and it's time people start looking for what's good and expecting things to get better. McCorkadale spoke to the Alabama Body Shop Association meeting in Montgomery today, telling the members that Alabama is rich in resources. McCorkadale says the state has great wealth in coal, oil, and waterways, and those things are going to play a big role in Alabama's future, that things are going to improve.
And I am an optimist, and I think that we're going to see a great change and great developments in the near future. I don't see a lot this year right away, but I think if we can just hold on and survive, that there's a lot of good news for us to look forward to.
McCorkadale says as the state's resources are tapped, it will be important for Alabamians to be the first to benefit. He says he's pushing for legislation to help them do just that. McCorkadale says he wants to see all jobs created by state projects filled by Alabama residents, with jobs going to out-of-state workers only if enough qualified Alabamians can't be found. But McCorkadale also had some words to say about past legislation, namely reapportionment. He says the U.S. Justice Department's rejection of legislative plans for remapping voting districts is presenting problems to candidates for political offices. McCorkadale says until a final plan for reapportionment is given to the state, many politicians won't know what district they'll be running for office in, and he has no idea when a court-approved redistricting plan will come. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Take him on! Come here, Roosevelt. Come on. Still mad at me up here. They say get as much hair off as you can. Okay. All right, we'll have to brush Roosevelt and you do that. He says, well, it feels good. Where's the other brush, Catherine? Where's the shape? Let's get dog to us. Can't we wait till we get Roosevelt? No, it doesn't really. Oh.
The engine started losing a little bit of power, and I just picked the first field, so I set it down so we could check it out, and that's what we're doing.
Any problems at all? Is this the first time you've had to do this?
No. I've actually had a couple of other landings. This particular engine and this particular airplane is just sort of made for landing in fields because you're never too sure when the engine's going to malfunction, and you're always prepared to do this. So it really is not too out of the ordinary for this kind of airplane. You see the big wheel is made for terrace jumping.
You were kind of close to the airport. Just didn't feel like you had enough power to make it in?
That's right. I was actually steering a little bit wide to steer clear of some trees over there, and when I steered wide, it started cutting back, and this was the closest field rather than trying to make it back and maybe running the risk of getting into the trees.
I'll tell you, that's one thing I would really...
Many came to Caesar's Palace last night to bury champion Larry Holmes and to see Jerry Cooney become a real-life Rocky. But it didn't work out that way. For 12 rounds, the younger and less experienced Cooney fought a good fight, even though he was warned repeatedly for low blows, had points taken away for them, and was behind. Then, with less than 30 seconds left in round 13, Holmes caught him with a sneaky right, and that was the beginning of the end. Fight fans will probably always remember this as a technical knockout, but in the record books it will go down as a disqualification because his trainer jumped into the ring.
And I'm not going to let my fighter take a beating for all the millions in the world.
The two fighters held a joint news conference today, sort of. Holmes and his people had already begun when Cooney and his entourage arrived and took the loftier position.
I think the hype is over, because I have proved once again that I am the champion. I took everything that Jerry Cooney had to offer and more, and also returned the favor.
I think Larry Holmes is a good champion. And as Muhammad Ali would say, I shall return
There was no handshake, but plans are already being made for a rematch.
We had 2 officers on stakeout in this drugstore. We've had a stakeout for 2 weeks now in several drugstores in town. Tonight, while the officers were in the back, this individual came to the front door, took a brick, knocked it out, came in and went directly to the Class A drug counter, where he was challenged by the police officers. He turned to run, the officer shot him. That's about the basis of it. He's an unknown black male. He has no identification on him. The only thing that we're going to be able to trace him by right now is he has an awful lot of addict marks on his arms. He's a young male, maybe in his late 20s. That's all we know at the present time.
All right.
The glass in one of the front doors of Cloverland Drugs in the Cloverland Shopping Center has been replaced today. Last night, police say it was smashed out with a brick by a man who entered the store and went straight for a back counter where police say some hard drugs and a cash register are located. Police Chief Charles Swindle.
We had 2 officers on stakeout in this drugstore. We've had a stakeout for 2 weeks now in several drugstores in town. While the officers were in the back, this individual came to the front door, took a brick, knocked it out, came in and went directly to the Class A drug counter, where he was challenged by the police officers. He turned to run, the officer shot him.
The dead man has been identified as 28-year-old Frank Pinkston of Montgomery, a man police say had an extensive criminal record. Last night, Swindle said the man had needle marks on both arms, indicating to police that he was a drug addict. Police say Pinkston was shot once with the 12-gauge shotgun. He was hit in the head and neck. Police say Pinkston was apparently unarmed at the time of the shooting. Under Alabama law, police officers are told they can use whatever force is necessary to stop fleeing felons. Police say the stakeout of Cloverland Drugs was in response to other drugstore burglaries in the past month, in which the burglar or burglars involved broke out windows or doors and ran in and out before police could arrive. Police say the investigation into last night's shooting is being conducted by the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney, and the Police Department, and is routine whenever a policeman is involved in a shooting. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Mary Chambliss. F.A. Andrews.
We probably have a large...
To the graduates and friends, platform guests, it's a real pleasure to me to share this with you today, address. Normally at this time, our best days as a state certainly lie ahead of us. And now that with your GED, you'll be better able to enjoy and be a vital part of a developing and up-and-coming state, a state with a very, very bright future.
The officers involved in the shooting are identified as W.F. Mixon and J.T. Collier, with Officer Mixon firing the fatal shot. Pinkston is a known criminal to the Montgomery Police Department with an extensive record, including armed robbery, burglary, theft, and assault. This case is being investigated by the Montgomery PD, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office, as is customary in all police-related shootings.
Captain Alford, I'm sure one question that will come up is why did the officer use that amount of force? Why did he shoot the man when he did not have a gun?
Well, I'm sure at the time the officer fired the shot, he didn't know whether the guy was armed or not. This was a low-lit area in the back of a drugstore. The officer was in there. There were two officers in. One officer goes to the front of the store to try to avoid an escape by the suspect. The other officer was confronted with a guy, and he has to look out for himself. At that time, he didn't know whether the subject was armed or not armed. He asked him to halt. The subject lowered his hands towards his waist. At that time, he turned, and the officer fired a shot. It was a possibility, and he didn't know at that time whether it was more than one subject in the store or whether they were armed or not. He felt he was necessary force to prevent escape and protect his own life.
Starting out in a California insectary, Randy perfected a process for raising gnat-sized flying parasites, which he says can practically eliminate infestations of flies. Here's what happens. The adult fly lays hundreds of eggs, which in turn turn into larvae that grow into pupa and then hatch as adults. But scientists discovered that the tiny parasite, which is actually a member of the wasp family, lays its eggs by boring into the fly pupa, which kills it and keeps the adult fly from ever hatching.
Well, luckily, Mother Nature came up with the idea, and all we're doing is exploiting it. The research has been around for 20 or 30 years, but research doesn't really get it to the farmer where it's necessary.
Randy and company keep about 600,000 adult flies around to lay eggs in these egg cups filled with cotton and evaporated milk. The eggs are collected, washed, and cleaned, and then transferred into these plastic pans filled with wood chips and a special food mixture.
Go ahead.
Within 5 days, the tiny fly eggs have changed into the larva stage and then into the brown cocoon-like pupa stage. Then the female parasites are collected from their containers and put into another area where they immediately attack the fly pupa, bore holes into them, and lay their eggs. The women handle the shipping part of the process. So far, their biggest order was from the state of Colorado that wanted 39 million little wasps. The parasitized pupa aren't counted out one by one. They're measured by volume, poured into bags, sealed, and shipped to customers around the world. Once the customer receives a shipment, he simply spreads the parasitized pupa out over the areas where the flies breed. The little wasps hatch out and start looking for more fly pupa to bore into. That's when the fly population starts to dwindle. And Randy says there's no danger of an overpopulation of the little wasps, since all they eat is fly pupa.
And what we do is not try to balance out nature, but inundate with a host-specific parasite at such large numbers that the population never can take hold, and you stop it before it becomes a problem.
So it's a case of Yankee ingenuity at its best. 4 young people with what they say is an environmentally sound solution to a pesky problem of fly control. I'm Bob Howell, WSFA TV News, reporting from Grady, Alabama.
Here now, the other firefighter selected him for the position. Our 10 doesn't consider his age when he's on the job.
No, I don't. I don't think most of the members do either. We get along pretty good, and at a fire, I think it's not somebody as far as somebody 17 against 41 or 35. I think as the chief and the people, they understand what my decisions are.
And all 10's confidence is confirmed by many of the 6,500 residents who live here.
This house right here was on here, and he was more or less in charge of it, and they really did a good job.
He's very good. He's very efficient. I've seen a young man work before.